Okay, crazy weather again today. This is one section where these gray clouds are just dumping the rain down everywhere. Fortunately, it's sunny here. And what did I read today? How about this one? Apparently there's a study in terms of flying drones near birds. It makes me wonder anyways, just from experience. Isn't it just basic common sense? This one here says, bird watching with drones might want to watch your distance, study says. As it says here, as researchers and wildlife enthusiasts increasingly use drones to watch birds, a new study has come out with guidelines for best drone operating practices that minimize disturbance. This study represents an important first step in understanding the wildlife responses to drones and promoting ethical considerations in the use of new technologies in wildlife monitoring. Meredith Palmer, conservation scientist at the Yale Center of Biodiversity and Global Change, who wasn't involved in the study, told Mongabay. To arrive at their recommendations, researchers analyzed 149 studies, mostly from the Antarctica, the US and Australia. What? No Canada? Even though we have so much wildlife here? And it says where drones have been used to monitor birds. They examined various factors related to drone usage, including the types of drones used, how far they took off from the birds, how fast they approached the birds, what bird species the drone observed, and whether the birds showed any adverse response to the machines. The study mainly focused on the flushing or flight response of birds due to its detrimental effects on breeding success, energy budgets, and even survival. So what did they ultimately conclude? It says the researchers found that faster drones, like fixed-wing drones that resemble and maneuver like traditional airplanes, cause birds to react more negatively than slower drones, mostly rotary wing types that can hover in place. This is likely because higher speeds are usually associated with predatory attacks. The authors write, the researchers also recommended that bent wing drones shaped like predatory birds should be avoided. Drone distance and speeds also matters. For instance, the researchers found that large breeding birds like penguins or pelicans usually don't try to flee if a drone approaches them at a distance of 30 meters or more. For medium-sized birds such as gulls, ducks, and herons, the safe distance increases to 50 meters, while for small birds such terns, shorebirds, and passerines, it's recommended that drones stay at least 70 meters away. So it's kind of interesting too, because as you know from my personal experience from capturing a lot of wildlife and so forth, the ones here for the most part in a lot of areas, they just don't care because they know, oh, it's you again. Like that drone, like you're not bothering me, I'm gonna get my food or whatever. I mean, I have so many examples of flying near birds. You guys are so shocked all the time. So with that said, in terms of things like distance and all that, isn't that common sense answer? It really depends on the animal's environment and what they're used to. If they're used to seeing a quote drone all day long floating in the air doing nothing, then they won't be afraid of it. It kind of reminds me how in the past, apparently anyways, when it came to things like automobiles, people were freaking out because they said horses, when they see them, they would go crazy. And so with that, people are like, okay, you have to keep these cars X amount of meters and so forth away from the horses. But then you look at it nowadays, there's cars around horses all the time, right? Like here anyways, like around Stanley Park areas, there's these horse carriage tours, for example, and there's cars going by every single day. They're just used to it. So isn't that the more common sense kind of answer to all this? It just seems like you're getting really technical when really it's really straightforward. Especially in this topic, there's so many quote animal experts when it comes to, for example, drones in that regards. When they don't even fly drones themselves with any real experience, they will automatically say, oh, they're gonna get a heart attack. Look at that, isn't it stress? And even I'm looking at it, it's like, what, are you kidding me? Like with those whales, for example, the drone 80 meters in the air, it's getting distressed. What are you basing that on? I mean, overall, it's good to have studies and some kind of reference at the same time. As I mentioned, like here, it doesn't even include Canada, and it makes me think, do you not have all of the data that you kind of need? Like even for myself, I just go out there and capture, like don't you already have the available information to kind of make a conclusion like, okay, yeah, it comes down to things like the environment and all that. I mean, it's no different from a person. I mean, there's some people, they have extreme phobias when it comes to certain animals and all that, whereas other people, they don't. And what would you say is the case for that? Again, it comes down to things like the environment. Are people taught and trained to fear something, for example? It'd be the same thing, in my opinion anyways. And with drones still, more news about North Korea and South Korea fighting over an apparent drone. It says here, North Korea blames South's military for drone intrusion. I believe this is the same one that they accused South Korea of. in terms of dropping propaganda and so forth, although I haven't read any confirmation. It says North Korea's defense ministry blames South Korea's military for sending drones into its territory for political purposes, calling it an infringement upon the country's sovereignty, state media KCNA said on Monday. So it's kind of different, where now they're claiming it's from the military. It says the ministry announced final results of its investigations after claiming that South Korean drones flew over Pyongyang at least 3 times this month to distribute anti-North leaflets. KCNA has also published photos of what it described as a crashed South Korean military drone. During an analysis of the drone's flight control program, North Korean authorities said they uncovered more than 230 flight plans and flight logs since June 2023, including a plan to scatter political motivational rubbish. On October 8th, records showed that the drone had departed the south border island of Gyeonggi-do late at night and released leaflets over the Foreign and Defense Ministry buildings in Pyongyang a few hours later. Seoul's defense ministry did not immediately have comment, but has said Pyongyang's unilateral claims were not worth verifying or a response. And with this, they mentioned during this time, North Korea sent about 3,000 troops to Russia and so forth. Is this one of those things where it's just an excuse to start a fight, I guess, with someone? Just over a drone dropping potentially leaflets and all that? Either way, it's kind of crazy. And when I read this today, actually, at first I thought it would have potentially been a story about here in Vancouver, but apparently it's about Vancouver in the US, where people were actually burning ballots. I know there's an election there. This one says ballot burning. The Clarko auditor said hundreds of ballots were inside the box at the time of the burning, and maybe only a few can be saved. Voters who dropped off ballots at the location after Sunday need to contact the auditor's office immediately. So you can see videos of it and so forth. It is what it is. Somebody said on fire, and it makes me wonder, what happens in that case? Let's just say in this particular area anyways, at the end of the day, the winner won by maybe, I don't know, 10 to 20 votes, and knowing that this happened, what would happen afterwards? Would they actually redo the whole election in the area? Funny enough, with all this too, with people not being happy, let's just say if their party of choice doesn't win, one thing people are saying might happen is they'll just try to create chaos, for example, destruction, get people to fight with each other so they can delay it. I don't know. I wouldn't doubt if that is a potential outcome, but at the same time, it just shows you how extreme some people can get. All right, see you guys later.